The story opens up with a group of robbers hijacking an airplane that just landed at a Japanese airport. Outside the plane, a squad team is preparing to ambush the hijackers. Meanwhile, high-ranking officials are observing the terrifying situation in a panic. Inside the plane, everyone is terrified, except for a woman named Yankumi, who has just awakened from her sleep. Her seatmate tries to hush her, but Yankumi starts speaking loudly, drawing the attention of the hijackers. One of the hijackers even pulls a gun at her, but Yankumi seems unfazed and scolds them. She then starts arguing with the hijackers, and suddenly, gunshots are heard inside the plane. Following that, the police force prepares to attack and appears in front of the plane's exit door. However, everyone is shocked when they discover that the hijackers have already been defeated by Yankumi. This heroic act goes viral on live television, making Yankumi an instant sensation. Back at home, Yankumi's family celebrates her and says they're very proud of her actions. It turns out that Yankumi is not an ordinary woman, and she comes from a powerful Yakuza family. Her parents passed away when she was young, making her the fourth-generation heir after her grandfather. Furthermore, it turns out that Yankumi has been working as a math teacher at Akato High School for the past 7 years. However, she keeps her background a secret from both her students and fellow teachers. The next day, as Yankumi arrives at school, she notices her colleagues discussing about the recent plane hijacking rescue. Suddenly, the principal intervenes and puts an end to their discussion. He then takes Yankumi aside and advises her not to draw attention to herself in such big news stories, as it could expose her true identity. Yankumi also apologizes and assures him that it won't happen again. However, their conversation is suddenly interrupted when a new apprentice teacher named Odagiri arrives. He turns out to be Yankumi's former student, and she is overjoyed that her students are following in her footsteps and becoming teachers. However, she gets upset when Odagiri informs her that he is only doing this as a tryout, and it doesn't mean he will be a teacher. Later on, Yankumi brings Odagiri into the classroom and introduces him to the students. However, it seems like the students don't respect her and they simply ignore her efforts. Yankumi then invites her students to the field to learn more about Odagiri. Unfortunately, none of the students show up at the field, leaving her upset. Meanwhile, we see 5 students on the roof, whose leader is a guy named Reita. Reita and her friends discuss why Odagiri has suddenly come back as a teacher, because he used to be a very troublesome student. In the following scene, Yankumi's former students gather at a cafe and discuss that they saw her with a man. They're taken aback because they can't imagine Yankumi is capable of finding a boyfriend. While they chat about this, Yankumi and Odagiri arrive for lunch. She then introduces Odagiri to her former students, claiming he's a new teacher. Hearing this, her students realize that they misread the situation and joke that Yankumi could never attract such a good-looking man. Hearing this, Yankumi feels bad and proceeds to scold them, but Odagiri stops her. After this, Yankumi and her former students decide to eat together, realizing it's been a long time since their high school graduation. As they eat, they begin sharing stories about what they've been up to since graduation. Later on, one of the students admits that they all initially thought Yankumi wouldn't be able to handle teaching and would quit soon. However, they're surprised to see that she has not only succeeded, but is still working as a teacher at the same high school. Hearing this, Yankumi feels emotional and starts crying, so her students quickly apologize and comfort her. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Reita's friends, who are casually hanging out on the side of the road. Suddenly, they're confronted by a motorcycle gang who tries to extort money from them. Seeing this, Reita quickly steps in and tells the gang not to bother his friends. Due to this, they get into a fight, but Reita successfully manages to beat them and chases them away. That evening, Yankumi invites Odagiri to her house for dinner. She introduces him to her family and mentions that she's always dreamed of inviting her students for a drink and hanging out with them. After some time, Yankumi has a bit too much to drink and ends up passing out. Odagiri then has a conversation with Yankumi's grandfather. He reveals that Yankumi is the reason he became a teacher. He goes on to say that while Yankumi can be annoying at times, she taught him many life lessons and inspired him to work hard during high school. The next day, on their way to school, Yankumi unexpectedly runs into 2 of her former students who were quite troublesome during their school days. To her surprise, she learns that they've turned their lives around and are now doing well. However, her attention is soon diverted by a man giving a speech nearby. As she gets closer to the man, she notices that his face is very similar to her former lover. It turns out that this man is Kurose Kentaro, and he's the owner of Japan's largest IT company. He's now aiming to expand his influence by running for position of governor. Yankumi is immediately captivated by him and declares her strong support for his campaign. The scene then shifts to Akato High School, where a motorcycle gang unexpectedly appears. They turn out to be members of the notorious group called Black Skull, who has returned to get revenge on Reita. Even the teachers are terrified of them, so the principal immediately calls the police for help. Upon hearing the approaching police sirens, the Black Skull members decide to back down for now, but they vow to return again to seek revenge on Reita. Following that, the principal summons Reita and his friends to his office and scolds them for causing trouble at the school. He demands an explanation from them, but the boys claim that the motorcycle gang had initially provoked the trouble by demanding money from them. The principal doesn't believe their words, but suddenly Yankumi steps in. She assures the principal that they're telling the truth, stating that she can tell when they're lying. Hearing this, the principal decides to let the matter go, but tells Yankumi that if her students cause any more trouble in the future, she will be fired immediately. Later in class, Reita and his friends are shocked by Yankumi's willingness to risk her job for their sake. Not wanting to put her in any more trouble, Reita decides to end the matter once and for all. His friends try to convince him not to go against such dangerous people, but Reita leaves anyway. Later on, Yankumi arrives in the classroom with Odagiri and find out that Reita has left to confront the gang. She's disappointed in her students for not stopping him and letting him go alone. After scolding them, she heads out to find Reita. In the meantime, Odagiri confronts the boys and reminds them that if they're true friends of Reita, they should stand by his side no matter what. The scene then shifts to Reita, who has reached the hideout of the Black Skull gang. He warns them to stay away from his school and challenges their leader for a one-on-one fight. However, the leader refuses him and they all gang up to beat Reita. Moments later, the building begins to shake and the wall collapses, leaving a massive hole in the wall. From there, Yankumi arrives and demands the gang to release her student. The gang then turns on her and she begins to beat them one by one. She is still overpowered by them, but just when all hope seems gone, Odagiri arrives and helps her. The two then beat up the group and eventually chases them away. Just then, Reita's friends also arrive and thank Yankumi for her help. Confused, Reita questions how an ordinary teacher can fight like this. She answers him that she was able to fight because she cares for her students. The next morning, Reita starts treating Yankumi with more respect, and his friends greet her good morning. Seeing this, Yankumi is overjoyed that her students are finally appreciating her. Afterward, some cops arrive at the school, which freaks out Yankumi. She thinks it's about the previous night's fight, only to learn that one of her students, Ren Kazama, is suspected of a drug deal. The teachers claim that this can't be true since Kazama is a very good student. However, the officers reveal that Kazama's wallet was found at the crime scene, and he's been missing since the night before. As the police leave, they ask the teachers to inform them if they come across any information about Kazama. Later on, Yankumi still can't believe that Kazama would be involved in drugs, and she's convinced there must be another reason. So she decides to find him before the cops and heads out. While she's looking for him, she's stopped by a group of people who reveal to be Kazama's friends, who are also looking for him. They split into different groups and look for him all day, but to no avail. In another scene, we see an injured Kazama getting a call from Yankumi. However, after contemplating for a while, he decides not to answer the phone. He then notices a police car, so he hurriedly hides under a bridge. That evening, as Odagiri is about to leave, he hears a voice coming from one of the classrooms. Upon checking, he discovers Kazama hiding there. Shortly after, Yankumi also arrives with other students. She questions Kazama about why he didn't call her, and he says that he didn't want to put her in trouble. He then explains that he had recently found a job of delivering goods, but had no idea what was inside. But last night, he accidentally dropped the package and noticed drugs inside. He then got scared and said he wanted to quit. However, the men then started beating him and only left when the police arrived. Kazuma also ran from there, but unfortunately, he left his wallet behind. Hearing this story, Yankumi asks why he needed the job, and he explains it was to support his sister. She reassures him, saying it's not his fault, and offers Kazuma and his friends a place to stay at her house for the night. Later at home, Yankumi orders her henchmen to investigate this drug dealer. Not long after, they successfully find out that the mastermind behind the illegal business is Kentaro Kurose. He's not just rich, but also incredibly influential, so it's tough to confront him and expose his crimes. Hearing this, Yankumi grows enraged and swears to expose Kentaro's actions to the public. But just then, Kazuma and his friends overhear the conversation and decide to take matters into their own hands to spare Yankumi from further trouble. The next day, Kazuma and his friends head to Kentaro's headquarters in search of evidence. At the same time, Yankumi and Odagiri are on their way there as well. Upon arrival, they witness journalists preparing campaign materials for Kentaro. Afterward, Yankumi and Odagiri try to enter Kentaro's room. Meanwhile, Kazuma and his friends discover a room full of boxes containing drugs. But suddenly, Kentaro's men arrive and notice them. They then raise their guns and prepare to shoot Kazuma and his friends. But fortunately, Yankumi arrives just in time and defeats all of them. Meanwhile, Kentaro has started delivering a speech that is being streamed live. In his statement, he pledges to improve the city if he gets elected as governor. While he's still talking, Yankumi arrives on the stage and reveals all the crimes he's committed. Furthermore, her students appear behind the stage and broadcast the place where Kentaro keeps all the drugs. Seeing this, Kentaro's supporters are frightened and quickly leave the premises. Kentaro then gets enraged and tells his men to beat Yankumi. Meanwhile, many special troops are already stationed outside the facility. Even Reita and his gang are unable to enter since the authorities have detained them. Despite the odds, Yankumi successfully defeats all of Kentaro's henchmen. Kentaro then aims a gun toward her and accuses her of ruining his life. Yankumi then advises him to surrender immediately and informs him that he can restart his life. After a lengthy conversation, Kentaro eventually gives up. Soon after, special forces enter the building, prepared to take action against Kentaro. However, Yankumi advises the police not to shoot him because he has chosen to surrender. In the end, Kentaro is captured by the police while the whole nation is amazed by Yankumi's bravery. The next day, Yankumi becomes a news sensation, and all the teachers, including the principal, commend her bravery. Later during class, she invites her students to play Kick the Can in the field. At first, the students are quiet, but after Reita urges them, they all join in. Soon, they joyfully run around with Yankumi as the movie comes to an end.